everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to This Week in Caribbean Tech, the podcast that helps you to stay ahead of the top tech news, the top business news in the Caribbean and globally, and why it matters to you and your business. And of course, we're here again. My name is Ingrid Riley, founder of SiliconCaribe, and I have the Trini with me.
Hi, I'm Daniel Smith.
I'm always like, hi, I'm Daniel Smith. I don't know why. You're married, you're not trying to mako no girl or nothing. I don't understand. What's up with the sexy thing?
I'm trying to be professional, as my daughter says. I'm trying to be professional. So yes, I'm trying to be professional, Miss Riley.
Okay.
How are you today, Miss Riley?
I'm good. The brain it's Thursday. I can't believe it's Thursday again already, right? But it is what it is. And so I'm happy to be doing all this stuff. I'm a little bit on the tired side, but a little bit of coffee and a power nap today kind of like perk me up a little bit. So I'm good. But apart from that, we're happy to report that oil prices are trending down, but inflation is not. So inflation is not giving us a damn break. In America, the Fed, as they call him, has increased interest rates.
5.25%.
Yeah, it wasn't aggressive, but yes, it wasn't aggressive, but it was that.
But maybe six rate hikes for the year. So this may be the first one some are calling it. So we'll see how this goes. But it's for me, I don't even inflation. I'm way more concerned about the war. What is going on in Ukraine. And I see the oil prices coming down, and that's whoopee. Gas prices I hope come down soon, right behind it.
Yeah.
But just looking at the story, some of them are heartbreaking. So I'm just like, can we like get a break from the madness of this situation? Because I was looking at some, theater where there were some children and some women there, and they said they bombed the place and they're trying to see how many people are alive. And I'm like, this is just crazy.
War is just stupid. And it's always the women and children that bear the brunt of the decisions of these warmongering, men. And not to be slightly sexist at all, but it's just history has shown us the case, right? Unfortunately, and so the impact of the war is without question the hardest on the people of Ukraine. But of course, as we'd always say, that sometimes when one country sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold, and that's pretty much what is happening, which is why we're seeing, spikes. We had seen spikes in oil prices and spikes in food prices. So yes, the Fed has, upped, the American interest rates a little bit. We here in the Caribbean are trying to do our own version of that. I mean, Jamaica has a super high, we've gone into double-digit inflation, which is the first time we've done so in how many decades. So, so this against the backdrop of, the budget presentations are being read, in Jamaica and Barbados right now. And so it says, yes, Jamaica has, double-digit inflation being reported right now, which I can see why, as we roll into the news items, like Jamaican government is like, money for you, money for you, money for you, because right now is just a lot of money on a lot of people's minds right now. And let me tell you why. First item of news, Jamaican e-payment market doubles. And of course, it was reported that Jamaica's e-payment market more than doubled over the last 2 years, according to the data from the Bank of Jamaica. And of course, it is attributed to the pandemic and people, of course, going online to shop and also setting up shop online and just doing things digitally more, right? So the data that comes out of the central bank says that e-payment transactions in 2021 was valued at around $26.89 billion. Which is 129% increase over the same period, in like 2019. So without question, this is as we all talk about that, how the pandemic accelerated a lot of things digitally. And without question. People stayed in, people found alternative ways of paying, for what it is that they want to come to them or whatever. So the e-payment products that they're reporting on, all these numbers are all linked to mobile apps and linked to payment cards used for electronic transactions. So we definitely seeing a meeting, a sort of a mashup of the pandemic digital acceleration meeting that was, an increasing digital culture anyway, but everything else kind of was like what they call a holy mashup and mix up. And so this is what has resulted as a result of that. So yeah, Jamaican e-payments is up. So I guess does this debunk the fact that people were not very trusting or not very interested in doing business digitally?
I think that so on the one hand, it augurs well for the Caribbean and Jamaica in terms of what that market looks like. If you in a certain age demographic, I would say 40 and younger, you fall into that demographic of being willing and amenable to making a living yourself of these tools to be able to do your transactions. I think on the flip side, though, what it says to me is that, hey, a lot of things were suppressed by the powers that be before, and now because you don't have a choice, and you still want to make your money, you figure out a way to get it done. And so that is a lot of apprehension and a lot of trying to maintain the status quo. But could it have been done before? Of course it could have been. And I think, but the powers that be just didn't want it to happen in that way because it wasn't benefiting them. When nobody could move and everybody started asking themselves how I'm going to get paid, or stuff like that, then it becomes, oh yeah, well, you know what, let's do that kind of thing. So I think that the winners in this category would have to be the consumers.
Absolutely.
And I don't know that some of these providers actually saw increased profits, because the thing about it, while the market could have doubled, the fact is that they'd have to do implementation of a bunch of new software in some cases, security in some cases, to make sure that customer data, etc. So some of them were spending. So while the market doubles, that does not necessarily mean that everybody had this 129% increase in their profits or anything like that. That's just the market that we're talking about. So for the consumers, I say the consumers are the biggest winner in this conversation.
Absolutely, because we know when we were locked inside, that, as you said, for businesses to actually still do business, they had to offer online transactions, and also on the part of consumers, for them to get certain things done as well, they had to be okay in doing business online and getting into other cards as well. So yeah, it all goes well for an increased digital culture, both on the side of consumers as well as on the side of businesses. So I just believe, we've been doing it for 2 years. So clearly it will be a digital habit that sticks. It will be a digital trend that continues. So it'll be interesting.
Is there the will and the motivation for it once we return to the wild and we go outdoors to kind of, because for instance, you'd go to a restaurant and because they don't want it to touch the menus, it would show up on a QR code. And so you have to put it on your phone. We're going back out into normalization, and how many of us gonna want to use? Like, I don't want to use that because I'm here. So does it mean that? I think that it should mean that, but I think that it because if I judge from what I see, sometimes it's, people just, even the simple things that people don't want to wear masks, people, even though, there's still some variations of COVID, around, while the numbers are going down drastically, there's still some kind of evidence of it being in the marketplace. And so, it's interesting to, I think that it's the right trend, but I'm not sure that, because old habits die hard and everybody's like, hey, we want to just go back to normal. So what does normal mean for some people? And that's my only, I look at it and I'm like, are we going to be there? Or are we going to want to revert to our old behaviors before pandemic?
Well, time will tell. I mean, Jamaica, we officially go back out into the wild 100% tomorrow, Friday, March 18. And so all curfews end, all, no mask mandates. So people have to use their own discretions, or entities will have to use their own discretion as to whether they maintain them and that kind of a thing. I'm hoping that things like the use of QR codes still remain. It's just easy. As well. And so I guess over the next 3 to 6 months, we'll see what habits stick. But here's the thing. There is no such thing as going back to the same old, like of 2019. Too much has changed in terms of on the consumer, in terms of habits and expectations and all of that. I see it even on the roads in terms of traffic. Usually you'll be able to predict your morning traffic, your lunchtime traffic, your heading home traffic. No, it's all over the place because people have changed their schedules because either from work from home or kids or whatever it is. So I don't think we should not fool ourselves. We're not going to snap back to 2019, but without question, there's going to be, we'll see what this new normal looks like over the next 3 to 6 months in terms of how we adjust what we find when we go out back into the wild fully to see what habits have stuck and what habits was like, nah, we just kind of want to go back to the old ways. So we'll think. But Jamaica is like, listen, we know we have some problems. We have double-digit inflation. We have, some things to deal with. So so while they have recorded double, 129% growth in e-payments, the government, again, in its budget presentation, is just like, okay, we're gonna like pump some money into businesses. So the Minister of Finance, Nigel Clark, announced new incubator funding programs coming for SMEs. Their goal, of course, right now is to fund over 200 businesses. So they have decided on a couple of things. It's a lot, right? And I was like, damn, that's a big thing. So they decided that through their boosting innovation, growth, and entrepreneurship ecosystems, their Biggie program, which is funded by IDB and the Development Bank of Jamaica, they have a new innovation grant fund that they're going to be launching. But in addition to that, this whole grant fund and this whole Biggie program that is focused on funding at least 200 SMEs, they are also decided they're going to fund 2 incubator programs that will provide training, mentorship, and incubation support to approximately 140 what they call high potential Jamaican startup companies. They also decided they're going to fund 3 accelerator programs, which again are focused on accelerating 90 scalable Jamaican companies. In addition to that, the list just gets longer. They've launched what they call a patenting grant fund to support inventors and researchers that may have patentable ideas. Then they decided they're going to have a sidecar fund that is going to invest alongside established angel investor networks in Jamaica. That's a lot. I don't think we've seen that sort of a menu of things. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's executed.
So listening to it, I just want to say straight off the top, it sounds exhausting. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Secondly, having spent a bit of time just looking into accelerators, looking into incubators, etc. I don't know those numbers make sense, but it's just me personally. I try to detach from what the reality is that that's like telling me that Y Combinator wants to fund or have 100 businesses in a cohort, and there could be cohorts broken down by a certain quarter. So I the devil would be in the details. But funding 40 businesses, Y Combinator does 2 cohorts, two times a year. So winter, spring, or something like that, winter, summer. So that's 40, 80. That's 80. So the numbers could work if it's done over like a 3-year period. But the thing about it is that you don't want to be doing so much and you don't keep close tabs on what you're doing, because things will slip through the cracks. Yeah. And while those numbers sound aggressive, and sorry about politicians, politic. And the bad thing about politicking, especially for people's lives, is that they start throwing money at things because they sound good, but then nobody comes and say, okay, what is the infrastructure requirements that we need to put in place here to make sure that it is a success? I think that sometimes, you know, especially in the Caribbean, we have a lot of, okay, yeah, this sounds glitzy and glamorous, so let's put it out. And because, you know, you have no credible opposition sometimes to be able to ask the hard questions around these things and to really create accountability, it goes good. But the question is, you know, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, who is accountable to make sure that these 200 or this 100, because I don't even think that accelerators and incubators, maybe 1 or 2 or 1 or the other, but having both of them double the size, and then trying to determine how do you get the success and measure the success. Those success metrics need to be, you know, really defined clearly. And who are you funding? What sectors? Are you looking at tech? Are you looking at agriculture? Are you looking at tourism? What are the sectors that you're looking at? Or do you do a mix of all? And do you have experts in each field to be able to guide these people to say, hey, here's what, Ingrid and your 5 friends, you are a startup, you building this, here's what, you have a mentor, this, that, the other, there's $100,000, how quick can I get 100,000 into your bank account so you can start doing work to building and scaling up? Can you get other investments in addition to that to grow? So to me, just all these questions hit me as you were saying it, and I'm like, man, that's a lot.
Absolutely. And you know, as we said, politicians politic, and this is an announcement, and we like to announce. But you know, having served in different capacities, you know, in some of these, you know, overseeing some of these, you know, initiatives, and just kind of looking at them, and you said the devil is in the details. How is it well executed? Because sometimes when you sometimes take a look at how these things are structured or how these things are administered, a lot of the money gets stuck in the top in terms of, you know, admin, in terms of consultants. And, you know, then there's a trickle-on effect to the entrepreneurs themselves who are actually doing the work. So we will see, you know, I think it's something that we should monitor, because at the end of the day, we've had enough announcements, we've had enough of these things. Are these programs going to be done in a way with that incubator programs, accelerator programs, whatever it is, are they going to be done in such a way where the process of applying, the process of receiving those funds are efficient and quick? Entrepreneurs can't be waiting weeks and months for the admin people to process shit so that they can get their things done. Or everything would have just simply been a farce. So I just kind of hope that this is something I'm definitely going to be monitoring, especially because I have a key interest in the Biggie program out of DBJ. And just for you know, transparency purposes, I'm deputy chair of DBJ's Entrepreneurship and Mentorship Council. And so these are some of the questions that myself and other entrepreneurs, ecosystem builders, and investors who were pulled onto this council asked the tough questions. And so when we saw the reports of, you know, some of the glitches in the program, we hope that they've learned from that and are now going to apply it in a better way. And so the entrepreneurs get the money quickly, because that's what they need. They don't need a bunch of papers. They don't need whatever it is, because it's fine that most people tend to like and need mentorship, but frankly, what most entrepreneurs need is some goddamn money. That's it. And they leave them alone because they know pretty much what they're doing. or they'll figure it out like all entrepreneurs do. Right?
Amen, sister. I don't need to say another word after that, because all you need, because I've seen too many programs where people get sucked into, oh, well, we need to mentor you, over mentored and underfunded. I've heard that term. That's one of the terms we use in the Black, entrepreneurial ecosystem. Over mentored, underfunded.
Exactly. And so, but hey, we'll see. So they've thrown a lot of money there, and we'll see. And as I said, last item in the whole talk about money in the news section, because we do have our Future of Carbon Money segment coming up. We do have our This Week in Carbon Startup segment coming up. And of course, we have some events that we believe you should be putting on your calendar over the next 60 days. So the next news item is that Dcash, which I had mentioned in our last week's episode, is back up and running. Now, Dcash is a central bank digital currency out of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank that covers 7 Eastern Caribbean nations. It went down in January this year and stayed down for 2 months until they basically snuck out back a release a couple of days ago saying that, hey, we're back up, we apologize. No, it's not just that they're back up and apologizing, is that they have some work to do. They have not just to restore this, Dcash digital currency system on a technical level, but they also have to restore trust and restore understanding. Now, fine, people can say that, okay, they didn't have, like 50, 80, 90% uptake as yet, but they still had, I think, between 20 and 30% uptake. That is still consumers and businesses using it across 7 countries, and it went down for 2 months, right? So they said the ECCB says they're doing extensive testing and assurance exercises to restore the platform to fully functioning and according to certain assurances. But I think that, so eventually, the OECS, the Eastern Caribbean country, the citizens and businesses will be able to move their money within and across the borders within those 7 countries. But for me, it's not just a matter of a technical restoration. It's indeed a perception and trust restoration. And so they have a bit of work to do with them. But hey, they're early days. We could give them some slack and say, hey, one mistake or one glitch does not kill an entire scenario. So we hope that the lessons have been learned and so, but do you think that they can restore trust and grow and scale and have more people using the Dcash?
So I think that what I've learned from crisis PR, number 1, just be upfront. Number 2, make sure that what you're coming out with after the crisis is you communicate.
Yeah.
I think that it took too long to communicate what had happened in the beginning. I think that this is the right step in terms of what they've done here. But what I would say is that going forward, they need to communicate to people. I would be doing a road blitz. Hey, I'd have ads, I'd be sorry, I'd go on the newspaper, I'd go on TV, I'd go wherever, the internet, LinkedIn, wherever, and start making my case. Yeah. Because ultimately it's about perception. And when it comes to my money or people's money, the easiest thing to use is perception. Once you lose that trust, it could be gone forever. And, I've seen some stories about some banks here recently, percentage of homeowners not getting loans, 50%. And it's one bank who has done a bunch of things. And they just keep on just doing this to one group of people. And I keep saying, why are you, number one, if I'm a consumer, I'm really looking at you with 2 to 4 eyes trying to figure out, are you for real? And so when it comes to my people's money, I think that, once you lose trust, because what happens if it goes down again? Who is responsible? Who is answerable? And what have you done? So I think they've done the right things thus. Well, number one, they didn't really communicate too quickly. They took a few weeks before they actually, but I think they started to get the idea in the end and they started to come forward. But was that enough? We'll have to see.
Yeah. I think it's a matter of time, but let's cut them some slack. A lot of CBDCs are not exactly out there in the world yet. The United States doesn't have its own CBDC as yet, and they're still studying all that as well and see how that could benefit them.
And while I'm cutting them some slack, I would say that they have been one of the forefront leaders, and other countries have watched them. But what I really look at is how have they utilized somebody like Ingrid Riley? Anybody reached out to Ingrid and talked to Ingrid and say, Ingrid, you mentioned this a few times, because we mentioned this since in our Twitter spaces. Reach out to people like who are influencers, who have a following, and say, hey, here's what we want to do an interview with you to explain what happened. And it's not about Ingrid, it's about your consumers. And do it across the board. So for me, while we can't cut them some slack, they have to understand that in this digital age, you have to step up, because you're dealing with currency.
You're accountable.
Yeah, you're dealing with currency, money, and stuff like that. So yeah.
Accountability is really, really crucial. But as I said, we wish them luck, and we wish them continued success, because we want
the best for them.
Absolutely, we definitely want the best for them, for sure. And we'll see what other CBDCs, Jamaica is rolling out theirs, scaling out theirs. As we had mentioned in the previous episode, that the Jamaican Prime Minister say, hey, we want to the first 100,000 people that sign up to use the Jamaican government's digital currency called Jamdex, get basically an airdrop of $17. And so we'll see if that motivates anybody to test it. Anyway, again, we're on this money train, right? So we're into the next segment, future of carbon money. This is where we talk about news trends, the hottest things in crypto, fintech, NFTs, and try and tell you what's going on, and in plain English, and what it will, sometimes from the people who are actually in it. So the major, point of news in this future of carbon money segment is there seems to be a romance, a partnership brewing between Barbados and Binance. So the Caribbean's Prime Minister, who also happens to be the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley. We call her the Caribbean Prime Minister because we kind of really kind of dig her. So she announced in her budget presentation a whole range of things. She's really trying to get Barbados restarted, but not just in the same old way, in fresh ways. And so she announced that Barbados is in talks with Binance, which is the largest crypto exchange in the world, and they're talking about how they can, clear. For me, it seems as if this is again Mia's next step in definitively planting a flag and saying, what, Barbados is going to be the fintech hub of the Caribbean. And so, in her presentation, she not only announced that they're in talks with Binance, but was talking about they have created a fintech industry advisory group. They want to be on the cutting edge in terms of ideas. They're not going to be doing any specific regulation, but an overarching regulations that allows innovation to thrive, while at the same time being very, very mindful that they must keep people's money, data, and identity safe. So you had words like DAOs and fintech and NFTs and crypto coming out of Mia Mottley's mouth, and I was like, you go, girl. Because for them, she said it's about finding the right opportunities, the right ideas, the right balance for regulation that will still give them a competitive edge. Your thoughts, Daniel?
Look, I watched it. and I am totally a fanboy of Mia Motley. I know that's your friend. You and her one on podcast.
I wish we were friends, but I can tell you, I am definitely going to pop down to Barbados before the year is out. It could possibly align with the same time that they're having crop over, But hey, you know what I'm saying?
But I think she said all the right words. And I like her style in terms of thinking into the future and trying to position her country and her policies around where do we go next. I like that, she started talking about the orange economy. She talked about rum, and she talked about, some of the creative segment. I forgot what it escapes me, but she was talking about rum and how Barbados doesn't make enough money from rum. And then she was, and it was a whole conversation around, okay, how do we position ourselves to make more money as a small dot in the world? And as you talk about Mia, it reminded me of the conversation that we started having about Rihanna, another island girl who is, the ambassador for Barbados, and what she's doing with her Fenty brand. And for me, there is a lot of great moves that we are making in some of these spaces. And I just think that, it's just like time is like, hey, you go people, let's see what we can do. Because I think that, the time is now, all eyes are upon us, and it gives the opportunity. Barbados was the first one with BIT. And so they've done a lot of stuff. So I do think that this is great news for Barbados. I think that, she's taking all the right steps. So it's left to be seen how they capitalize upon it, but I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. And that's why I keep saying that all the podcasts that I've been on and the events that I've been invited to recently, I've been saying that fintech and crypto is they're both going to dominate the headlines, the attention, the money, throughout the Caribbean this year. So it's going to be a really solid banner year going into 2023. Because look at this. We have Binance that seems to be making a beeline for Barbados. We have FTX, which is also the third largest crypto exchange, which is is headquartered in the Bahamas, which is the home of which is a country that again had the very, very first CBDC called the Sand Dollar. And then we have Circle, which is more focused on institutional investors in the space, that is based in Bermuda. And so we have some really interesting things popping up in the fintech and crypto space. I'm excited by it, and I'm happy that there are politicians, there are leaders, there are entrepreneurs that are focused on this space, because just what little that I have, been studying over the past 3 years, very intentionally, even though, I knew about certain things from like over the last 7, 8 years, we in the Caribbean cannot afford to miss this boat. This crypto and fintech era is literally reorganizing global wealth. It's reorganizing the global financial system. And so we've got to study it, position ourselves to participate in it. And so for me, it's an exciting time. So I wish Auntie Mia and Barbados the best. I'm looking to see what Jamaica will do, what Trinidad will do, what Cayman will continue to do, what St. Lucia is going to do. Let's see what happens. We're going to, of course, keep a very, very big eye on fintech and crypto as it waves through the Caribbean. So, yeah. And so next segment, This Week in Carbon Startups. Now, dude, Daniel chose this one, right? And I'm going to just have him say what it is and explain how come he considers this to be Startup of the Week. Go ahead, sir.
So when we look at the media landscape of the Caribbean, you do realize that there are a lot of players. But the fact is that,
not just a lot of players, but a lot of the owners, primarily, the majority of the owners are, or should I say, in some ways, we're still on a plantation in terms of media ownership in the region.
100% agreed.
Right? Let me be quiet now. Go ahead, sir.
So basically, 3 entities came up with this thing called the Caribbean Publisher Alliance. Yes. And it's Trend Media, which does Loop. It's the Gleaner out of Jamaica, and it's a Trinidad Express.
Yes.
They announced today that they were piloting Caribbean Publisher Alliance. And the purpose of Caribbean Publisher Alliance is to promote and protect the indigenous Caribbean digital news industry for consumers and to promote best-in-class standards and for its advertising partners. So it's giving like brands, media agencies, etc., who have marketing budgets, the ability to be able to cross-promote on multiple platforms, be able to get their customers to be able to see some things. And, you know, they say by building an ecosystem that is collaborative and transparent by design, the Caribbean Publisher Alliance will be able to facilitate access to premium inventory and first-party data to develop innovative brand-safe offerings with scaled reach and high user engagement that respects consumer privacy. So why is this a startup, Ingrid? Because for years, I've had meetings with some of these newspapers, with some of these entities, personally, sat down with the CEOs and said, hey, you guys are missing the boat. Google, Facebook, everybody's eating your ad dollars. This is like 4 or 5 years later since some of those conversations. I kid you not. And here it comes on the radar. And when you read the article, you realize that it's Loop inspired. So it's coming from that digital edge because Loop is owned by Digicel and they have a great interest in this. But the reason why it's not startup because they are all established entities, but they're actually trying to do something innovative, which for all intents and purposes, they have not been, because their bread has been buttered for how long. And so that's why I give them a little clap and say, hey, fall into the startup of the week category, because you're trying to do something new. Will it work? I don't know. But at least they're trying something that could give them some kind of differentiator in their market. Because you and I know that Facebook, Google, and other small entities sometimes are eating their ad dollars for lunch. And I don't know that the Caribbean publishing industry has too much more ad dollars floating out there that they can afford to give up. So to me, this is one of those things that gives them at least some kind of rights in the market. So.
All right, I hear you. I hear you. So yeah, so it's not in terms of where the classic definition of what we consider a startup to be. And so we'll give them startup thinking, right?
Yeah.
Because as you said, Loop is the youngest of them all. Which is done Trend Media. That's a media brand out of Trend Media, which is of course was started by is owned by the Digicel group of companies. The other two, the Gleaner company is older than me and you times 3. And the same thing with Trinidad Express. They're what they call the classic mainstream media that's been around for over 100 years. And so yeah, all this tells me that they tail on fire. The tail is on fire because consumers' attention has shifted, and shifted primarily online, shifted also primarily to, yes, places like Facebook and Google and social, where they can get certain news that is brought into them by their network or fed to them by publishers who are actually nascent there. But also, let's not forget too that consumers also are going more niche in terms of what they want to read, watch, and to hear. We're a product of that, because there are a lot of micro, small, and medium-sized media brands that have popped up over the region and the diaspora, and have been popping up. That's been an upward trend, especially over the last 5 to 7 years. And so the eyeballs have been skewed, and so they now say, let's consolidate and collaborate to try and pool those things. So they're building like a media network that people can run their ad budgets through. Very smart. So very smart, actually.
So this week in Caribbean Tech may get acquired soon? That we saying?
Not at all. This week in Caribbean Tech, or the Silicon, which belongs to SiliconCaribe, is not up for sale. It's not up for sale. It's
I
up
hear
for
you.
it's up for partnerships, and we're
No, and you know,
but it's not up for sale.
as you talked about, you know, niche brands and what we're basically one of the only ones who cover Caribbean tech holistically. And so, you know, it does, you know, it says, you know, where are, you know, they in terms of being able to cover Caribbean tech in its entirety. So that's, you know, that was my teasing question to you based on knowing where we are in the space and what is being done.
Yeah, but you know, it's good. I mean, it's something that I do wish them good luck, because there's no innovate, and hopefully that they're actually using the data from their online properties. They're using the data in terms of seeing what customers are really interested in and want more of, and to craft new products and services, get out of the fat cat mentality and stay in that startup thinking mentality and innovate and meet consumers where they are. It's not just the people who live in a region that want to know what is going on. It's a diaspora. There are people who are interested in coming to live and do business in the Caribbean. Give them a higher quality of content, a greater range of content that they can latch on to, instead of just simply trying to put up a paywall to the same shitty content. Like, give me something fresh. So I wish them all the best. You know, we're still going to do our thing. And so let's go out there and compete, and may the people who understand the consumer best and give them what they want win. But there's so much white space in Caribbean media. It's unreal. It sometimes tempts me to take on some funding and do some things, but we'll see. I'll sleep on that. But anyway.
Very well, ma'am.
Well, good luck to them. But anyway, and the last thing before we go is coming up, we have to ask you to put this in your events calendar. Now, we talk about SiliconCaribe doing new things, doing different things, continue to do more things. We've always been doing events. And so what we're doing a lot more of are events with key partners. So we're going to be doing a slew of trend forums. And so the first one that's happening this year is called FIntech Forward. I did tell you that FinTech and crypto are going to be like, yeah, right. So we're doing a trend forum in partnership with Microsoft Caribbean and the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance. Now, this trend forum is for entrepreneurs, executives, creatives, investors that want to get caught up on the state of Caribbean FinTech in terms of the trends and in terms of the business opportunities. We want you to understand what is going on and to catch the wave. So it is going to be Wednesday, April the 20th, 2022. Go to SiliconCaribe.com and register. It is free, generally. And there are it is free thanks to our partners.
Everybody likes free stuff, Ingrid. Just
but you know, well, these trend forums, we design them to be free. You know, or other conferences and stuff are not, but we designed for these trend forums to be free because we really want key individuals to have access to people who are on the ground doing some interesting things, who are on the ground seeing where consumer trends are going, business trends are going, and give you the data that you can't find anywhere else, give you the insight that you can't find anywhere else, so you can leave the trend forum a little bit smarter and better able to make certain decisions for yourself and your business. So go to SiliconCaribe.com and register. April 20th is when FinTech Forward is being done by SiliconCaribe in association with Microsoft Caribbean and the Caribbean Blockchain Alliance. And so once you sign up, you'll get information about speakers and other things that we're going to be dropping to people who are registered for this event. All right, cool. I hit that. We're done. Anything else you want to say, sir? Because I know you're busy, right?
Yeah, ma'am. It's one of those days, but yeah. Great being here. Fantastic week. I think we're on fire. I think that the region is on fire. Love all the money stuff, and let's continue doing it. I'm just waiting for next week, man.
Absolutely. So thank you guys. Thank you guys and girls and ladies and gentlemen for listening and watching to This Week in Caribbean Tech, a podcast from Tech Media side SiliconCaribe. So if you liked what you heard, like what you saw, do subscribe, comment, and share this and help us grow. If if you're watching it on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. So every time we throw up a new episode, you'll get the notification. If you're listening to it on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, make sure to leave a comment, give us a 5-star rating, subscribe, and be generous and kind and share with your friends and colleagues. So until next week, I'm Ingrid Riley. He's Daniel Smith.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend, everyone, and
All
take
right.
care.
Bye.